also the Executive Secretary of Sustainable Energy for Whole, was supposed to be here.
Yes. And
being at the panel with Dr. Bilbao. But in fact, he can't come because there's an energy crisis in Sierra Leone. It's that serious that he has to cancel last minute. And in fact, he was texting just now and sending pictures of the discussion he's having and the negotiation with the power supplier. That shows that energy is key. And both prime ministers and the deputy prime minister of Tanzania have laid out the issue we have in Africa. And in my discussion with you and many others, we're talking about solar energy. But I often ask people, solar is great for electrification, but we haven't yet managed to industrialize the continent with solar energy. You've talked about the cost of solar energy and the fact that it has been spread across the continent and across our villages for what people need for lightning. But what we need is powering our agriculture, powering, in this modern day, our data centers for artificial intelligence that is now accessible to everyone. And I think there will be a discussion with both Minister of ITCs of Rwanda and Togo, and then many others to discuss this issue. Energy is key. Agriculture is, but energy is as well. And then they go both together. And that's why Africa cannot get away from getting involved in the implementation of nuclear power plant today, and specifically with the small modular reactors that are easy to deploy, modulable, as we say. And I'm sure Dr. Bilbao, who is the World Nuclear Association head, will give more detail on the technical aspect of those technologies.
Yeah. Dr. Bilbao, I wanted to ask you, the whole nuclear thing, it's not new. It's not new to Africa. In the 50s, you know, there was the Atoms for Peace program, which was started by President Eisenhower after the Second World War. And there was a program of foreign nuclear research reactors, of which Kinshasa got a research reactor. And then it ended. And I think the reason it ended is because there was a fear of nuclear proliferation, of misuse of nuclear fuel. What is going to be different this time? You know, we talk about regulations, about laws. What's different this time?
Well, thank you, Andrew. Thank you, Dr. Servo, and thank you to the government of Rwanda for putting this together. It's a great opportunity to actually bring lots of thought leadership to move Africa forward when it comes to development and energy. So answering your question, Andrew, and I think that Dr. Servo alluded to what's happened in the last, I would say, 4 or 5 years at a global level, not only in Africa. We have finally made the connection that prosperity, socioeconomic development, industry, quality of life, health, education, exciting jobs, all those things need abundant, affordable, 24/7 clean energy. And in many parts of the world, we have realized that nuclear energy is definitely a piece of that puzzle. Not the only piece, but clearly an essential piece. So we are seeing how in all parts of the world, the conversations are changing about nuclear. So first of all, the conversation is no longer whether nuclear is a piece, whether nuclear should be considered. The conversation is how much and how fast. And this is in North America, this is in Europe, this is obviously happening in China, India, Southeast Asia, Central Asia. So now we need to make sure that this is also happening in Africa. We have a few things already happening. In Egypt, in South Africa, we are seeing not only accelerating the growth for nuclear, but I think that we really need to bring all these pieces together everywhere else in Africa. And let me just say, to me, this is a perfect moment in the history because it's not just Africa who is rebuilding this infrastructure that, as you said, we used to have in the 60s, 70s, or earlier. This is the same in many other parts of the world. In Europe, in North America, for more than 20 years, we have not invested in this technology. We have really let the infrastructure to go a little bit eroded, and now we are working to bring that back. So I think that this is a perfect opportunity for Africa to join the movement. Let's not wait for somebody else to come to Africa. Let's make sure that Africa is sitting at the table with all the other countries that are pursuing nuclear energy. Because as you know, there is many existing nuclear countries, but there is many newcomer countries in all corners of the world. In Africa, in Europe, we have Poland, we have Norway, we have Denmark. These are newcomer countries that have never had nuclear power. So they are in the same situation almost as we have some countries in Africa. Or Central Asia, you have Kazakhstan, you have Uzbekistan, you have Kyrgyzstan, Mongolia. Or if you look at Asia, you have Thailand, Vietnam, Malaysia, Indonesia, Philippines. All those countries are no different than Africa, and they are all moving forward. I think that is the moment to build this coalition of the newcomer ambitious to actually be at the table and make sure that you make actionable decisions on your future, including nuclear as part of the picture.
So when we talk about regulations, we talk about laws, where can we look for good examples? I know we were talking initially about places like UAE who are able to build 3 nuclear power plants in the shortest possible time, Korea maybe. So what are these shining lights that we can look towards?
Right. Well, so let me just say, I think that it's important that we look at nuclear not in isolation. I think that we need to look at the entire energy system. So it's important to have a long-term vision of the entire energy system, including, of course, the generation, a diverse and secure generation, including probably nuclear in many cases, but also the entire system, transmission, distribution, and all the ancillary services to make sure that we have a reliable system. So there are a few good examples all over the world of actually having this thought leadership to move forward quickly. You mentioned UAE. I think that UAE certainly is a shining example of how to go from 0 to 25% of your electricity coming from carbon-free nuclear energy in 15 years. That is crazy. And it's even more important because obviously this infrastructure is going to be in the UAE for the next 60, 80, 100 years. So it is going to power this growth for generations to come. But if you think about this is not very different to what is happening, for example, Bangladesh. Bangladesh will start their first nuclear power plant this year or maybe early next year, I mean very, very soon. And Bangladesh is going to go from 0 to 10% of their energy capabilities coming from electricity, coming from nuclear in 10, 11 years. That is very ambitious. But then again, look at what happened in France or in Sweden in the 80s and 70s. It's not different. These were countries that were trying to develop. They didn't have the strong economies that they have today. And they made a bet. They have a strong, bold leadership that said nuclear energy has to be a piece of our long-term economic development. And in the case of France, for example, we have 19 plants built in 15 years. In Sweden, I think it was 10 plants in 10 years. So it is feasible. It's been done before. We did it without AI, without advanced computers. So clearly, we should be able to do it again when all this technology and growth and industrial infrastructure that we have at a global level.
Because I wanted to ask you something on this. Is it build it, they will come? Because, you know, a lot of the times you hear, we want to go out and get funding for a power plant. We want to get funding for transmission lines. But you don't consume any electricity. Who's going to pay for it? You know, so how do we get beyond that? How do we get beyond short-term funding into 20, 30-year kind of funding to reduce the interest rates, tenure, and also ultimately the tariff that comes out?
We mentioned the recent changes of some of the multilateral development bank, like the World Bank. His Excellency the Prime Minister of Niger mentioned the West African Development Bank and Mr. Serge Kwe, who has been at the forefront of this idea of having our regional financial institution getting into rethinking their financing model. And I think there will be a debate in financing. We have venture capitalists that are here in the room. We have representatives of the financial institution. We're talking about possibly reforming some of those institutions so that they can rethink, as you said, long-term financing with the trust necessary to believe that by investing in nuclear energy, it might not pay off immediately, but it'll pay off because you start a nuclear energy program for 50 to 100 years. Yeah. It's a long-term commitment. Yeah. But some of the countries like the United Arab Emirates have been innovative in financing model. For instance, by tokenizing certified reserve to make available funding for countries like, emerging countries like most of us in Africa, to tackle the issue of nuclear energy. I think that's something that we should rethink and then we should embark in. I think Niger, with being the second producer of uranium, could certainly consider tokenizing its reserve, certified because it's been in research, exploration, and exploitation for some time. I think it's time that they take ownership in tokenizing those reserves so that it could make available fund for them to consider infrastructure, not only in nuclear, but other type of infrastructure for their socio-economic and industrial development. I'm sure better people in financial model will come and talk about what could be the easiest way to fund nuclear energy, and then the change of mindset between immediate return on investment and long-term, which is what we're trying to do and we've been doing with nuclear energy.
Yeah.
Dr. Bilbao.
Yes,
skills.
If I may add, Andrew, I think that what Dr. Cerveau just said is absolutely essential. I think that there is financing out there for clean energy and a clean energy infrastructure. And I think that the new changes that we have seen with the World Bank changing their lending policies, and frankly, many global banks and financial institutions paying a lot of attention at the role of nuclear, I think we are seeing a sea change here. I think you remember last year at the New York Climate Week, we were able to bring together 14 global major banks and financial institutions that were supportive of this goal of tripling global nuclear capacity by 2050 everywhere in the world. And so I think that we've been able to, we need to do much more work, don't get me wrong, but I think that we are seeing how these financiers are recognizing the completely different business case for nuclear power projects. How we are looking at a 60, 80, 100-year project with, yes, large capital investment up front, but as soon as the plant is operating, we are going to see steady, constant, reliable revenues that are going to be very, very profitable. We are seeing this everywhere. So it's just really a matter of attracting the right investors into these projects. Clearly, perhaps some investors with very short time frames may not be very well aligned with new nuclear projects. Perhaps they will be very well aligned with exploration of uranium or mining of uranium. There may be different types of projects and maybe different, pension funds or sovereign wealth funds may be much better aligned with a longer-term energy infrastructure project that includes nuclear. So this type of work we are doing, and I know that many policymakers here in the room have been doing this homework, but I think that the good news is that the mindset is changing and financiers are understanding better and better how nuclear fits in the financing picture.
I think one of the things that obviously is there is that we need to create skills, both engineering, the nuclear scientists, and people who can, of course, maintain these plants. I'm always concerned about brain drain because, the training is happening in other countries. And there are shortages, of course. Everyone is talking about nuclear. Once our best and brightest go somewhere to learn this, what are the chances that they'll come back? I mean, this is for both of you. Is there a way we can have this training done in centers of excellence here on the continent?
Yes, I would say so, because Ghana has a school for nuclear engineering that is bringing about people from across the continent. But I want to give the example of Rwanda. Under President Kagame's vision, Rwanda has, for the past 5 years, consistently sent professional and young students abroad to study nuclear science technology. For the past 5 years, and the 6th year, next year, precisely, they will be trained in Rwanda. That's probably the way to go, because we create a critical mass of experts that will accompany the deployment and implementation of our nuclear energy ambitions. But also, Dr. Sama will probably elaborate on it. She's funding training courses. There are 5 weeks training courses on nuclear science and technology. In fact, she's running tomorrow to go to China for their graduation. And I hope the fact that she's here, she will do the course next year in Rwanda. Yeah. And that's what I hope.
Okay, let's plan on that. I like that idea. No, so I very much agree with Dr. Servo. Obviously, we need to invest, we need to inspire, develop, and grow this global nuclear workforce. This is clear. And it is true that perhaps there is more existing capabilities in other parts of the world, so we really need to make serious investment in that in the continent of Africa. At the same time, I will say one thing. When we are looking at these big nuclear projects, only a small part of the people that will be involved in these projects, in the running of these facilities, are going to be nuclear engineers or nuclear professionals. We are going to need lots of mechanical engineers and civil engineers and electrical engineers and chemical engineers and all kinds of engineers, of which we already have many, and we can have many more. But very importantly, we also need pipe fitters and welders and people in manufacturing. We need project managers. We need economists and financiers. We need all kinds of other people that are going to contribute to this effort. So I think that it's important to have a country-wide, region-wide policy to develop this workforce, not just in nuclear, but in clean energy, because many of these professions are going to be shareable among the different pieces of the entire energy system. And then I will give you maybe one more example. This is coming specifically from the UK, but I think that there are equivalent examples elsewhere. So in the UK, there is a lot of effort that is being done to repower and reskill workers that are coming from other industries. The coal industry, for example, in the United Kingdom is in decline. Yet there is many experienced people that are in that industry that can be reskilled and re-educated to be able to work in nuclear or in other clean energy industries. So I think that this is a huge task. I mean, I'm not trying to minimize the effort, but I really want to make sure that we understand that we don't have to start from scratch. There is lots of talent already existing in our pools that we really need to redirect and repower in the right direction. And then I will say one last thing, taking advantage of the mention. So World Nuclear University Summer Institute is, as Dr. Cervo said, one of our flagship programs. We are very proud of this. It's a 5-week program where we bring 70 people, promising people. They have been selected by the organizations to come into this program. And we educate them in everything and anything about nuclear energy. But more importantly, we educate them for them to become the next generation of leaders in the nuclear industry. And I cannot emphasize enough how important is leadership. I mean, we need all the technicians, all the experts in all the pieces of the puzzle, but we need the vision and the bold leadership that is needed to actually drive these programs forward.
Thank you very much. It looks like we've come to the end of this session, but I think it's just a primer, and it'll be the setting of the discussions that we'll have for the next 2 days. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.